Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shereen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening.
Is it like Hanuman? You don't believe in your own capacity, in your own strength? And has there got to be somebody, standing next and say, hey, you're Hanuman, do it?
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman urges India Inc. to invest more, says the government has cut the corporate tax rate and provided incentives to boost production. Ask the industry, what's stopping you when foreign investors are putting money into India? The Sensex and Nifty end at their highest level in 5 months as bulls rally for the fourth day. The Nifty reclaims 18,000 for the first time since early April. Financials lead the charge with the Nifty Bank Index closing at a 10-month high.
At what price you choose to do your IPO is your business. We have no business to suggest otherwise.
Sebi Chief Madhavi Puri Butt says the regulator has no business to suggest pricing of IPOs of new age tech companies, but calls for more disclosures on valuations. Tells India Inc. the market regulator will not scrutinize business decisions but will crack the whip on violations. Inflation in the US continues to remain red hot. Consumer price index for August is at 8.3% higher than estimates. Shares on Wall Street plunge at opening bell. Vedanta and Foxconn sign an agreement to set up a $20 billion semiconductor project in Gujarat, plan to build a chip and display facility near Ahmedabad. The government classifies 384 drugs as essential, which must be sold at prices set by the Pharma Pricing Authority. These include popular drugs used to treat diabetes, tuberculosis, HIV, among others. 26 drugs deleted from the 2015 list of essential medicines. The COVID vaccines don't make it to the list. Depositories like NSDL, CSDL and CAMS could see 4,000 to 5,000 crore rupees in additional revenues. A CNBC-TV18 analysis of the impact of the insurance regulator's latest mandate to dematerialize insurance policy shows the move could cause some short-term pain, though, for insurance companies. 8 people are dead, dozens suffer burn injuries after a fire broke out at a hotel in Secunderabad. An electric vehicle showroom was housed in the same building. Police are yet to ascertain the cause of the fire. Senior lawyer Mukul Rohatgi set for another stint as India's Attorney General. He will succeed KK Venugopal, whose tenure ends at the end of the month. Well, let's start with the market action on the Lal Street, where the rally continued for day 4. The Sensex and the Nifty hitting their highest level in 5 months. The Nifty is back above the 18,000 mark for the first time since early April. Financials led the rally and the Nifty Bank Index at a 10-month high, so good day there as far as our markets were concerned. From the stock markets to the money market, the rupee gaining nearly 40 paise against the dollar, hitting its highest level in over a month. And as far as bonds are concerned, the picture is on your screens. Lata is here now with a money market snapshot. Lata.
Yes, the rupee was stronger by 0.5%, almost only 79 rupees to the dollar. At 0.5% higher, it is the best performing currency today in the Asian market. Other currencies are mostly flat, despite the dollar index falling a bit. Now, what is the reason for the rupee's outperformance? It's actually one-off. Dealers say that a large amount of dollars had flowed in some time back into the Indian market, and that was bought by banks. They had hedged that transaction, and now they had to square it off because it was maturing, and so they sold dollars both in the NDF market and in the spot market, and hence this flow of dollars and the fall in the price of the dollars. There are some guesses that maybe it was Holcim's payment that came in, in May, and that was hedged with the banks, and that is the contract that they are now squaring. But all this is hearsay. All we know is this is a one-off transaction. It is a forward transaction, and that was a large amount of money. There are other positive rupee factors like equity flows from FPIs have turned positive. There is an expectation that bond index inclusion will mean more dollar flows. These positives are there, and of course the dollar index is falling. But today's rally is clearly a one-off. We shouldn't expect such huge jumps in the Indian rupee as a matter of routine. The bond markets also did see some bit of positivity, despite the fact that the inflation number for August was higher than expected. This is because the bond market is less worried about inflation. They're only worried about the bond index inclusion. In any case, a lot of economists like from SBI and Citi are expecting the Reserve Bank to hike only by 25 or 35 basis points because of the dovish noises or dovish statements we got from some MPC members like Ashima Goyal.
All right, Lata, many thanks. And of course, the markets will now react to the US inflation print and what happens with Wall Street overnight. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman urging India Inc. to invest without hesitation. Speaking at the Hero Mind Summit in Delhi, the Finance Minister asked India Inc. when foreign companies want to be in India, why are Indian companies reluctant to invest? She asked if the industry is behaving like Hanuman, who was not aware of his own strengths. The Finance Minister has also called on industry leaders to ensure timely payments to MSMEs, saying the responsibility to support small companies lies with the private sector also, and not just the government alone.
Since 2019, when I've taken charge of the finance ministry, I've been hearing, though the industry doesn't think it's conducive. All right, bring the rate down. All right, tax rate was brought down. And I keep defending industry, private sector, where even provocatively people have asked, what would you want to tell the private sector? We will do everything to get industry coming and investing here. Give PLI. We've given PLI. I want to hear from the Indian Inc. What's stopping you? When countries and industries abroad think this is the place to be in now, at this time, FDIs are coming, FPIs are coming, it's all, the stock market is so confident, the Indian retail investor believes in them. Is it like Hanuman? You don't believe in your own capacity, in your own strength, and has there got to be somebody, standing next and say, hey, you are Hanuman, do it. Support to the MSMEs is not just what government can give. It is certainly largely dependent on that. Now I can push my PSCs, I can request states, I can make sure departments pay up, I can only appeal to the industry. For all the tears that we shed for the MSMEs, my tears, your tears, can we limit the time by which the MSME will get its due?
Well, that is the Finance Minister asking India Inc. to invest. What's holding you back is the statement from her. In a rare appearance on television, Prime Minister's Principal Secretary P.K. Mishra spoke about India's inflation problem. He said inflation has to be tackled with a multidimensional approach and not just look at fiscal or monetary policy. Meanwhile, the Chief Economic Advisor says inflation at 7% is still at manageable levels.
We have to look at not only in a one-dimensional way, but it is fiscal policy, monetary policy and other policies also. Plus, there are, the economy is no longer a closed economy. It is the external factor also. So keeping all these and taking a holistic view, we have to structure our policy. Right now, I cannot say what is to be expected, what is to be done. As we go along, we will structure our policy. It is being done also during the whole COVID situation.
I think, food inflation or fuel inflation do not get necessarily addressed by the central bank monetary policy except for second round effects. So therefore, more administrative measures and ensuring adequate stocks and making sure that the availability is ensured for the needy segments of the population, and that would make sure that any increase in local domestic prices in response to international prices, it turns out to be as limited as possible.
And staying with inflation in the U.S., consumer inflation has slowed to 8.3% in August versus 8.5% in July and 9.1% in June. However, the August reading is still higher than estimates of 8.1%, and that has taken the U.S. markets lower.
Expected 75 coming into this meeting, regardless of the inflation print, though, because even if we did get cooler inflation, which we didn't, we still haven't seen that sustained trend of disinflation. So we're going to continue to watch out to see if we do see that. Moreover, we're still seeing that labor markets are tight and wage growth is solid. And above all, if we see that the Fed happens to have gone 50 basis points, we would have been in the same exact position we were this summer, where all of a sudden the markets are pricing in a Fed pivot that the Fed is not ready to deliver. So I think at least it keeps us in line with that 75 basis point hike we're likely to see later this month.
Look at the core measure of CPI. When I look at these alternative measures of core or underlying inflation, trimmed mean, weighted median, underlying inflation gauge. Those to me all seem consistent with a pretty sustainable 6% core rate of CPI growth, and that's not 2%.
Well, that's the U.S. inflation print and reactions coming in. The government is likely to announce a calibrated correction to the windfall gains tax imposed on oil and gas companies. Sources say an announcement is likely in the next few days. This is as part of the fortnightly review. The finance minister set up an expert committee to address regulatory issues faced by venture capital and private equity investors. This was a budget announcement, a budget promise. The 6-member expert committee was announced in the budget and will be headed by former Sebi chief M. Damodran. One of the key functions of the panel will be to suggest measures to accelerate investments. The committee is expected to submit a report in the next 3 months. India's Vedanta Group and Taiwanese electronic manufacturer Foxconn have signed an agreement with the Gujarat government to set up a semiconductor manufacturing unit in the state. Both companies have pledged to invest 1.54 lakh crore rupees to set up the facility, which is expected to create 1 lakh job opportunities in the state. In a boost to Make in India, Google is joining the list of foreign smartphone makers to manufacture phones here. Google is considering moving some production of Pixel phones to India following disruptions in China due to the COVID lockdowns and rising tensions with the US. Reports suggest the companies asked for bids from manufacturers in India to make between 5 to 10 lakh Pixel smartphones. This is equivalent to around 10 to 20% of the estimated annual production for the device. Sebi chief Madhvi Puri Butch has made it clear that the market regulator will not interfere with the IPO pricing of new age companies. However, she's also added that companies need to make more disclosures. She was sharing her views on instances of tech companies seeking high valuations but then collapsing below the issue price. The regulator said that a company is free to ask for a higher price but needs to disclose what happened in the intervening period, which justifies the massive change in valuations. The Sebi chief went on to say that business decisions will not be scrutinized, but the regulator will crack the whip on violations.
A lot has been said about the pricing of the IPOs of the new tech companies. What is Sebi's view on that? Our view is simple, starting from the green. At what price you choose to do your IPO is your business. We have no business to suggest otherwise. The days of CCI are long gone. The Parliament has mandated us that we should have no view on the pricing of issues. You are free to price your issue at whatever price you consider appropriate.
Well, that's the Sebi chief. Tragic news coming in from the state of Telangana. At least 8 people were killed and several injured after a fire broke out in a hotel in Sikandrabad. The building also housed an electric vehicle showroom on the ground floor, but it's still not clear whether the fire started at the showroom. All those killed in the fire died of suffocation caused by the smoke. An FIR has been registered against the owners of the showroom as well as the hotel. The Ministry of Road Transport has sought a report from the Hyderabad local authorities on the possible causes of the fire. The state government has announced a compensation of 3 lakh rupees to the kin of those dead. Prime Minister Modi has also announced an ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees each for the families of the deceased. Senior advocate Mukul Rohatgi is all set to return as the Attorney General from India from October. He will succeed KK Venugopal, who will retire later this month. Rohatgi served as the Attorney General between 2014 to 2017. The 91-year-old KK Venugopal expressed his unwillingness to continue further as Attorney General. A former Twitter executive turned whistleblower is set to testify before a U.S. Senate committee. He has alleged serious security lapses at the social media network. This also comes ahead of a court battle between Musk and the Twitter board over his proposed $44 billion takeover. Musk is attempting to pull out of the commitment. According to reports, a majority of Twitter shareholders have voted in favor of its sale to Musk. Here's renowned author Walter Isaacson, who wrote the biography of Steve Jobs and is currently working on a biography of Elon Musk on what he expected from the showdown with Twitter.
If you're going to have a trial where all the dirty linen and all the clean linen is aired in public, this is bad. So it puts up more pressure for a settlement. I assume that that's a possibility. I know there are a lot of people sort of floating around trying to promote settlements. These are not people who, it's not like the Colgate-Palmolive person talking to Walmart and saying, hey, we can settle, because there's a lot more emotion to this one. But yeah, I think there's a possibility that this case won't go to trial.
Won't go to trial. Perhaps a settlement will be brokered. That's Walter Isaacson. We will take a break, but coming up next, the CNBC-TV18 analysis of the impact of the insurance regulator's latest mandate to dematerialize insurance policies. That and more when we return. The government has released the national list of essential medicines comprising 384 medicines across 27 categories. Now, 34 medicines have been added to the list, and these include several anti-cancer drugs, antibiotics and vaccines. 26 medicines from the 2015 list have been deleted. The purpose of the list is to ensure that these medicines are available to patients at an affordable rate. And staying with the healthcare sector, hospital merger and acquisition activity has picked up after a hiatus during the pandemic. In less than a month, we've actually seen 3 deals being struck at a cumulative value of over 700 crore rupees. Ekta Batral standing by with more. Ekta.
Thanks for that. Well, the largest of the 3 deals in the past few weeks was Apollo Hospitals acquiring a hospital bed in Gurugram for around 450 crores, followed by Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences, or KIMS, acquiring majority stake in over 300-bed multi-speciality hospital in Nagpur for around 80 crores. Lastly, the third acquisition was Narayana Health shelling out around 200 crores for an orthopedic hospital, Shiva and Shiva Orthopedics, in their home market of Bengaluru. Now, while Apollo Hospitals acquisition marked the company's entry into Haryana, the KIMS acquisition was to diversify away from Telangana and AP and Andhra Pradesh. Meanwhile, the focus of Narayana's acquisition, which is housed within this company's city campus that comprises of the Cardiac Sciences Hospital and their multi-speciality hospital, Mazumdar Shaw Medical Center, was to strengthen their offerings in the orthopedic, neurology and trauma department. So why has M&A picked up in the healthcare space? From a seller's perspective, a few reasons are driving sales, such as existing promoters or investors of standalone operations looking to cash out. Reasons range from a lack of an exit for investors, as many of the hospitals are too small to list, too inefficient to manage, or too insufficient in terms of volumes, as there is a movement of patients towards more multi-speciality larger chains. Now, from a buyer's perspective, acquisition targets are mainly 150 to 200 bed hospitals or larger. Hospitals have seen business pick up post-COVID-19, with domestic growth estimated to be around 10 to 15% in the next 5 years. And lastly, medical tourism. It's becoming a big growth driver. In fact, the likes of Shalby is looking at a 150 to 200 crore sized acquisition of multi-speciality hospitals in Delhi and Kolkata to cash in on medical tourism from Nepal and Bangladesh. Estimates suggest medical tourism could see a growth of anywhere between 18 to 20% over the next 5 years. Lastly, in the past few years, the return on capital employed of hospitals has risen from single digits in 2015 to 2018 period to around 10 to 20% currently. Recently, increasing risk appetite for acquisitions is indicative in the return on capital employed increasing. But why not fresh capex? Experts say it's easier to acquire a greenfield hospital. It takes 3 to 4 years to come on stream and longer to even break even. An acquisition, as described by one of the hospital chains, is a plug and play model. Find a strategic fit and buy it.
All right, Ekta, many thanks. Now, we reported first, it is official. Insurance regulator has mandated that all insurance policies be dematerialized. Yash is standing by to explain how this move will impact the ecosystem. Yash.
CNBC-TV18 had reported on September 6th that the insurance regulator was considering mandating that all insurance policies be dematerialized. On the 7th of September, we told you that the mandate has indeed come through. Let's now dive deeper and look at the big beneficiaries of this move and the cost involved for insurance companies. Let's spend a minute to look at what this dematerialization move really means. All new policies issued from December 2022 will have to be compulsorily issued in a demat form. And by December 2023, all old or existing policies will have to be brought on the demat platform. Many relate this move to the dematerialization of shares. The move would mean converting physical insurance policies into modifiable online policy. Insurance policies will be put on a separate demat platform called the EIA, or the Electronic Insurance Account. This EIA will have all policies belonging to an individual, like his life insurance, health insurance, or motor insurance policy. What does it mean for policyholders? Since all policies belonging to an individual will be in one account, servicing these policies can be done all at once rather than reaching out to individual insurance companies. Dematerialization will remove paperwork and physical policies. Finally, policyholders will be able to take loan against their insurance policies just like they do against shares. Now, let's get to the meat of the story. Who benefits? Well, in long run, this will benefit insurance companies, but the depositories are the ones who enable this process, and they will be the big beneficiaries. NSDL, CDSL, CAMS, Carvi are the big depositories analysts are focused on. My calculation suggests that the depositories here could have an opportunity to double their revenue. Why do I say that? Life insurance industry sold around 3 crore policies in FY22, and the cost of dematerializing a single policy estimated by insurance companies and industry experts is around 50 to 60 rupees per policy. That would give depositories an additional revenue of about 150 to 180 crore rupees. General insurance companies, they sold 50 crore policies last year. The same calculation on dematerialization cost will give depositories an additional revenue of 2,500 to 3,000 crore rupees. Finally, the old active life insurance policies will also have to be dematerialized. There are 30 crore life insurance policies, and dematerialization of these policies will bring revenues of about 1,500 to 1,800 crore rupees. All put together, there could be additional revenue of around 4,150 to 4,980 crore rupees for the depositories. Compare this to the current revenue which depositories make. NSDL's revenue in FY22 stood at 821 crore, CDSL's revenue stood at 606 crore, and CAMS was about 927 crore. A very conservative estimate would show that these depositories could easily double their revenue. Now, insurance dematerialization will certainly entail a cost for insurance companies. This right here is a breakup of the annual recurring cost and the one-time cost which big insurance, both life and general, will have to take towards dematerialization. On the positive side, insurance companies will save the printing and the delivery of physical policies. Dematerialization will also restrict frauds. Also, it will improve the renewal ratios and hence the persistency for these insurance companies.
Many thanks for joining us and taking us through what dematerialization could mean for the insurance industry. It's time now for our Startup Corner. Arundhati Ramanan is standing by with our Startup Snapshot tonight. Aru.
Thanks so much for that, Shereen. So let's take a look at all the action from the startup world. Bharat Pay ropes in former RBI Deputy Governor BP Kanungo and Zomato Chairman Kaushik Datta as independent directors. The company plans to strengthen governance, rigor and transparency as they look forward to a listing on the stock exchanges. The fintech unicorn is also planning a market debut in the next 2 to 3 years. Meanwhile, SaaS-based analytics firm ThoughtSpot is investing $150 million in India over the next 5 years and also has just opened its third center in the country in Thiruvananthapuram. The new investment will fuel product innovation for the modern analytics cloud for companies to build their business on data. In fundraising news, 91 Square Feet, a construction tech startup, raised $10 million in a Series A round led by Stellaris Venture Partners with participation from existing investors, Y Combinator, Betatron and other prominent angel investors. Now, the fresh capital will be used to strengthen the startup's on-ground service muscle, product development and deepen its engagement with its supplier network. Amazon India's wholesale unit reports 4,592 crore rupees of revenue from operations in FY22, showing a jump of 26% compared to a little over 3,600 crore rupees a year ago. It in fact recorded a net loss of over 480 crore rupees compared to a little over 161 crore rupees a year ago. This according to the latest data from TOFLA. Now, Google completes the $5.4 billion acquisition of cybersecurity firm Mandiant. Mandiant will join Google Cloud to help organizations improve their threat, incident and exposure management. The firm plans to retain the Mandiant brand. And with that, it is back to you, Shereen.
Aru, many thanks for joining us. A quick check of some of the other headlines that we are tracking tonight. Several West Bengal BJP leaders, including opposition leader Suvendu Adhikari, were detained while marching towards the state secretariat. The BJP was protesting against allegations of corruption against the Mamata Banerjee-led Trinamool Congress. The police have used tear gas and water cannons to disperse the protesters near the Howrah Bridge. A police vehicle was also set on fire. The latest on the irregularities in recruitment scams of sub-inspectors for the J&K police. The CBI is conducting search operations at 33 locations across Jammu, Srinagar, Haryana, Delhi, Bangalore, among others. Premises of the former chairman of Jammu and Kashmir Services Selection Board, the controller of examination, and the houses of the DSP and the CRPF officials from Jammu and Kashmir have been searched. The 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court has started hearing arguments against the 10% reservation for economically weaker sections in government jobs and admissions. The Petitioners argued that this reservation is a fraud on the Constitution and is dividing the country on caste lines. The court is likely to pass its verdict on the matter in 5 days. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned. The news continues here on CNBC-TV18.